Hello everyone and welcome to tutorial 1, Sharing Calendars. In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to share internal calendars with the outside world. Now what's really neat about this is that you don't really have to learn any new tools. You'll see that we'll be using tools that you're already familiar with, like your Outlook web or your Outlook client. In this case, in the tutorial I'll be using the web client, but all stuff that you're already familiar with. Let's begin by setting the stage, so to speak, for our tutorial. In this story, we are working for the fictitious, yet highly plausible, Centerville Community Arts Center, a small but very beautiful local art center that offers many types of activities and events to local citizens. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how employees of the Centerville Community Center can use their internal existing Exchange or Office 365 calendars to publish events and community activities. So if you look to the left here, we do have calendars with events and we have calendars with community activities. Now, for example, I as a citizen may be interested in concerts, so what I might want to do is filter out some of these events. I may be interested in homegrown music series and maybe the fall concert series, and this provides a clearer view of what's going on in these calendars. What I can then do is click on each of these events to see some information about them. Or alternatively, I can click on the day itself, which opens up this sidebar, and I can then expand and collapse the events here. I can then click on other days to see what's going on as well on other days during the month. Now, once the town has published all of these calendars, what they can simply do is provide a link from their website for citizens to open this page, or they can even embed all of this page, all of this site, right into their town website. Okay, so let's dive right into this. There are essentially three ways that employees at the Centerville Community Arts Center can get events published for the outside world. In this case, I'm logged in as an account called Events. And this particular account has been configured in Agendex Share to have its calendars made available publicly. So as you can see, there's the main calendar, which a user would use to schedule their own appointments and meetings. But we've also created a bunch of secondary calendars, which is what we saw when we were looking earlier from the citizen's perspective. And all these calendars is what we were looking at just a short while ago. So I can turn them on and off and see what all the activities are. So one of the things I can do as an IT administrator, for example, is to create this events calendar or account and share it with Agendex, and then simply provide the credentials to users who will then come in and maintain these calendars. So for example, we might not want to see its own internal calendar, but we want to add events to the concert fall series or theater events, and all the other types of calendars. So these are all just secondary calendars added to this account. I have the credentials to this account. I can come in and I can add events or modify events or cancel events, whatever needs to happen. Whatever I do here, whatever I add or modify, will be reflected within about a minute or two in the public calendar that we were looking at just a few moments ago. Now, that is one way of doing it. It might not be the best way. In this situation, what we advocate is a better way, is to share these secondary calendars with people within the organization that may be responsible for maintaining them. So for example, if you look at the theater series here and I look at the permissions that have been granted, I've added Emily North, who's our events coordinator, as an editor, which means she will then see this calendar within her own account and she can add events or modify events. So, for example, to see what that looks like, we're going to add her, because right now she is not part of the speaker series, as we can see here. So what we're going to do is share this calendar with Emily, and we are going to make her an editor, and we're going to send the calendar invite. So nothing changes from the events mailbox perspective. All we've done is we've shared this calendar here, this speaker series, with Emily, and there's nothing stopping us from sharing it with multiple users within the organization. Now let's go see what happens from Emily's point of view. Right, so we've now logged in as Emily, as we can see here, Emily North. She's our events coordinator, as just mentioned. And once we go to her calendar view, we can see that she's got her own internal calendar with all of her weekly meetings. But she also has access to all the events calendar. So for example, she can turn on the fall concert series, theater series, and so on and so forth, all the other calendars that have been shared with her. However, as we can see, she does not have access to the speaker series, but we did just invite her to that calendar. So let's go see what that looks like for her. She gets this email that says, I'd like to share my calendar with you, speaker series. All Emily has to do is go accept, and she now sees the speaker series and all of the events associated with that. So let's get rid of fall concert series. Let's just look at speaker series. Now, if we go look at the published calendar for all of this, let's filter down just on speaker series to look at what that looks like. So we've got Sage Wright on the 6th, we've got Mohammed Berg on the 9th, which is exactly what we are seeing here. So one of the things that Emily can do is, now that she's got access to this calendar and she is an editor, is she can add an event to it. So all she needs to do is click on the day. I'm going to go to more details because I do want to put some more information in here, and I'm going to add a new speaker and the theme of his afternoon speaking. I'm then going to pick a room. So in this case, I'm going to pick a hall, and it's going to be Theater Hall 2. This is going to be from 7:30 in the evening till 9 p.m. There is no repeat, and we're already in the speaker series calendar, so that's fine. We could from here pick another calendar, of course, and I can put a small description that the public at large will see. Spend an evening discussing little green men with the fabled FBI agent, and I will then save this event. So we can see now that it is on the calendar. Now, within a minute or so, the event that we have just created will appear here on the 7th, just as we have created it on the 7th here in our calendar. And there you go. So now anybody from the outside that accesses this published calendar page can click on the event to see the event description and the time. Now, we have mentioned that Emily is an editor of the calendar, so not only can she create events, she can also, of course, delete events. So for example, we've just now learned that Agent Mulder has been abducted by little green men and will not be able to present. So we will cancel this event, and we will send the cancellation now. And within a few minutes, again, 1 to 2 minutes, the event will disappear from the public calendar. And there you go. Okay, so we've already discussed 2 ways of publishing events to the public calendar, right? The first one was logging in as the calendar that was actually configured in Agendex. In this case, it was events@agendex.com. The second way was we had that account, events, share a calendar out to a user, Emily, and who was given editor rights and able to add or remove events. The third way is, as a user of the system here, I am Emily. I'm still logged in as Emily, and one of the things I can do is add a secondary calendar. And we've decided on this exciting new country music concert series, and so we're going to call it Cowboy Boots and Pickup Trucks. And so I'm Emily. I'm creating this secondary calendar here, and I can then start adding events to it. What I need to do is share it with the events calendar, and I don't need to give them editor. Full details is enough. So just by sharing my personal calendar, in this case a secondary calendar, with events, it will get published. Now, someone will have to go into the events account, because obviously when you share calendars with another user, as we saw, someone has to accept that calendar. So some admin's going to have to go in and accept the calendar share from Emily. But once that's done, all Emily has to do is then go in here and start configuring her event. So let's say she's going to start by looking at, well, when are the fall concert series? And we've got something now on the 23rd of October here, for example, that we're going to create. I'm going to make sure I'm in my new calendar. I am. I'm going to go more details, and it's exciting. We've got George Canyon on his good day to Sing tour, for example, all made up just to spin on his hit song Good Day to Ride. And it is going to be in Theater 1 because they were expecting a lot of people for this. And this is going to start at 8 p.m. at night. 8 p.m., not 8:30. And this is going to go on probably to 10:30. And come here, the legendary Canadian country artist. And again, this will be seen by the public at large when they look at the event. So all the details have been added, and there's no repeat on this one. This is the right calendar, and we are going to send this into the calendar. Now, let's switch back to our public-facing Agendex Share calendar, and we can see that Emily's new calendar, Cowboy Boots and Pickup Trucks, has been added. You'll note that what's different here is we can see that it was shared by Emily North as opposed to the events mailbox that we were playing with earlier. So let's filter down to just this calendar, and we can see the event that Emily just added. Now, this is a very simple way for users to share public calendars. We know that events is a mailbox whose calendars have been shared publicly. So now anybody who shares a calendar, their own internal calendar, or in this case, a secondary calendar, with that account, that calendar will become public, which is why what happened here is Emily created that secondary calendar. She shared it with events, and now whatever she puts in that calendar is going to be publicly available. Very easy. However, in this scenario, I would say that it might not be the best way of sharing events, and here's why. This is a secondary calendar in Emily's Exchange or Office 365 account. So she'll start populating that calendar with events and modifying events and adding stuff, and let's say a couple of months down the road, she either changes role or leaves the organization. After a little while, IT will archive or delete or make her account inactive. And what happens with that calendar? It goes along with it because it belongs to Emily. Hence why I said earlier that in this case of the Community Arts Center and multiple people may be adding or removing or modifying entries in these calendars, it's a much better method to have these secondary calendars in the main mailbox for these events and then share that out with the users who will manage them. So again, it's not that it cannot be done. As we can see, we've done this here now. She's created a secondary calendar in her own account, shared it out, and sure enough, we can see the events on the public calendar. But as I mentioned, if something happens to Emily and she leaves the organization and somebody deletes her account, then all those events would disappear. So we've now seen 3 ways of doing it. Directly into the events calendar. If I have the credentials, I can sign in and create the events there in the secondary calendars. I can share those calendars out with one or as many users as I need to manage these events and activities and what have you. Or as a user who creates a secondary calendar and shares it with events, I can also add content in those calendars, which will also be published publicly. And that is the end of tutorial 1, sharing calendars.